Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mayor Stephen Reed, Mayor of Montgomery, Alabama, and First Vice President of the African American Mayors Association.
I want to thank all of you for being with us here today. It's great to see so many friends and colleagues joining us here in Atlanta, but we want to thank you for taking part in this welcome luncheon during our 10th annual conference. I have served as a vice president of the African American Mayors Association for the past year. And during that past year, I'd like to thank President Sean Patterson Howard and the Mount Vernon team for all their support and leadership of AMA and for continuing the legacy of leading such a phenomenal organization. Let's give her and her team a round of applause. I'm grateful for her example of leadership, and as I prepare to assume the role of AMA's presidency tomorrow, our board leadership vision is clear and includes transportation and infrastructure, housing and urban development, public safety and police accountability, wealth creation, as well as women's reproductive rights. As the only organization representing more than 500 Black mayors in the nation, we are committed to playing a vital role in the national conversation around policies as they impact our community. These things are very important. And I know many of you already do tremendous work in these areas, and this is just a brief overview of our priorities. Let's continue to contribute to the equitable and inclusive growth of our cities and our communities. One quick announcement. For those who have signed up to attend the Tyler Perry Studios tour on Saturday, you have received an email that contains a release form that you must complete and upload to the link in the email. This must be done by tomorrow at 12 noon. So again, if you have signed up to attend Tyler Perry Studios tour on Saturday, make sure you check your email and upload the link and respond to it before tomorrow at noon. Also, for those of you very active on social media and for those of you trying to get active, as you scroll Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram feeds today, be sure to share and retweet the stories you see about the African American Mayors Association 2024 conference. You can find AMA on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook at Our Mayors, or ampersand Our Mayors. And if you're taking the stage during one of the meal events, including our Legacy Awards Gala or during the Town Hall on Saturday, we are live streaming these events to our YouTube channel. Be sure to let your networks know. And lastly, don't forget to include hashtag AMA10 in all of your posts. We can't wait to share your posts too. That said, thank you for being here. Thank you for all the support, and enjoy the rest of the program.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Reverend Dr. Damon Williams, Minister of Providence Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia.
My friends, let us pray. O Holy Creator who gave us this opportunity together, we thank you for this opportunity to be together in fellowship and in friendship. We pray earnestly for each and every person who is under the sound of my voice. We thank you for these leaders who pour out so much on their citizens and the constituents in whom they serve. And we ask now that they use this time of them being together to pour back into them and to give them strength, that they may continue to do the work of serving others and to making this country and ultimately this world a better place. And now we ask that you will please bless this food, bless the hands that prepared it, and most importantly, bless our fellowship. We ask all these things in the name of the one who woke us up this morning. And all of the persons who are gathered together, we all said together, amen.
it's not about just seeing as many patients as possible. It's about how well can you take care of them. My practice is on the east side of Atlanta. It's in DeKalb County, in South DeKalb County. My practice is probably about 85 to 90% African American. It's a high prevalence of diabetes and a high prevalence of end-stage renal disease. For me as a clinician, Village makes me a better doctor. It enables me to deliver a higher level of health care to them. It will allow me to provide them with more resources that will help them achieve their own health care goals. So Village allows me to be a better doctor.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Policy Session 4, sponsored by Village MD.
Good afternoon, Amma. Good afternoon, everyone. So we are here today for our Policy Session 4, which is the power of leaders to promote health justice. Village MD and the African American Mayors Association are joining forces for the third year in a row to increase awareness around primary care access, particularly in medically underserved communities. We want to support health equity efforts. In the Power of Leaders to Promote Health Justice program, we will be speaking with Dr. Valerie Montgomery Rice, president of the Morehouse School of Medicine, as well as Village MD physician, Dr. Clyde Watkins, to discuss strategic health partnerships that will positively impact our communities. And so with that said, this is brought to us by our Business Council member, Village MD, and I'm thrilled to be a part of this panel. We'll discuss strategies that our mayors can use to support collaboration with leaders in healthcare and education to advance health equity. Joining me today are two incredible leaders that can bring some real-world insight into this conversation. First, we have Dr. Clyde Watkins, who is a primary care physician at Village Medical with practices in Lithonia and Decatur, Georgia. Dr. Watkins earned his undergraduate degree from Morehouse College here in Atlanta and attended Meharry Medical College in Nashville. He then completed the Willis Hurst Internal Medicine Residency Program at Emory University School of Medicine in Atlanta. Dr. Watkins is a member of the American College of Physicians, the Medical Association of Georgia, and the American College of Physicians Georgia chapter, where he serves as treasurer and chairman of the Health and Public Policy Committee. Welcome, Dr. Watkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And if that wasn't fabulous enough, we have my soror, Dr. Valerie Montgomery Rice, who is the president and CEO of Morehouse School of Medicine. Dr. Montgomery Rice has held faculty positions and leadership roles at various health centers, including academic health centers. Most notably, she was the founding director of the Center for Women's Health Research at Meharry Medical College, one of the nation's first research centers devoted to studying diseases that disproportionately impact women of color. A Georgia native, Dr. Montgomery Rice holds a bachelor's degree in chemistry from the Georgia Institute of Technology, a medical degree from Harvard Medical School, and an honorary degree from the University of Massachusetts Medical School. A Doctor of Humane Letters from Rush University. Dr. Montgomery Rice is an outspoken leader in the national health conversation around health equity and women's health. And we've been speaking throughout the year about health equity and how it is impacting our communities. And so we are here today to have an unapologetic and very honest conversation around health. It's going to be a challenging conversation, but it's a very important one. So please take this journey with us. Just so you know, Morehouse College, Morehouse School of Medicine is just one of 4 HBCU medical schools in the country and plays a critical role in educating and training the future Black physicians of America and healthcare. And providers like Village MD are partnering with the College of Medicine to make sure that we have a pipeline of doctors that are coming into our communities. So I am a Village MD patient in Mount Vernon, New York. And they have been excellent providers of medical care, providing culturally competent and relevant and sensitive, but having those courageous conversations. Because I know as a Black woman, as many of us as Black women, healthcare is sometimes the last thing on our mind. We are busy taking care of community, family, church, and our partners that we put our health last. And so when I speak to my doctor, they oftentimes push me and say, look, we need you to come back, we need you to follow up, we need you to do what you need to do, because if you're not taking care of yourself, then you can't take care of everyone else. And so I believe sometimes we need doctors who understand our culture. We need doctors who understand our culture, who will have those conversations with us. They're not easy conversations. And so I want to talk a little bit about strategies that we're using to promote diversity amongst the physicians here in the United States to ensure that we have a pipeline of physicians that are coming in who understand the health disparities, the social determinants of health, and the critical nature of health in our communities. Can you talk about that, Dr. Montgomery Rice?
Thank you all, and thank you to the mayors and the staff that support them. Thank you for all that you do to promote health and wellness in your communities. And I would say, first I want to talk about that courageous conversation about what's happening with you when you go to the doctor. And the first thing that I will say is that there's no wealth without your health. And if you all know, leadership is hard, and the one thing that I would advise is that you take care of yourself first so that you can continue to run this race. And one of the things that we do at Morehouse School of Medicine as we educate and train this next generation is we teach them and co-create with them solutions of how to have those difficult conversations. Those difficult conversations are better received when there is some type of connection that one has with their patients. When I can honestly look across someone and ask a question based on what's possible, as I look at you, if I look at you and say, based on who's sitting in front of me, what's possible, I can only ask that question when I actually know something about that individual. So what we do at Morehouse School of Medicine, very traditionally as the other HBCU medical schools do, we try to recruit from communities that are underrepresented. And when you recruit from those communities and you develop a curriculum that teaches them respect for those persons sitting across from them, humility, and of course pour into them all of the knowledge, when they combine that with their cultural experience, it leads to cultural competence, it leads to cultural humility, it leads to an understanding of how you can have courageous conversation. And I know myself and my colleagues at the other HBCU medical schools are firmly committed to ensuring that we have a healthcare workforce, not just MDs, but also biomedical scientists, physician assistants, dentists, and anyone who touches the healthcare continuum, that they are representative of the communities that they serve.
Dr. Montgomery Rice, thank you for speaking about not only cultural competency, but cultural humility. Can either of you expound on the cultural humility that you're speaking of? Because that's a brand new term. It's a relatively new term, and we're hearing it more and more, but I think it goes beyond cultural competence. Can we have that discussion for a moment?
As a primary care physician, there are two things that are extremely important. And, you know, Dr. Montgomery Rice touched on it, relationship and trust. If you have a relationship, you genuinely over time will develop trust. And that's really the key
to having difficult and uncomfortable conversations, because there's no misinformation, because you've basically built that foundation of trust, and you've cared for that person, oftentimes their families. The key to primary care is that it's a longitudinal relationship. When I trained, as a resident, the majority of my training was on the inpatient setting. My relationship with the patient may be 5 days. They would go home, see their PCP. But my joy was residence clinic, because I could actually get to know people. I could sit down, I could hear their stories, learn about their families. And oftentimes, if we develop a great relationship and trust, they trusted me with their families. And there's mounds of data out there that tells us, if you have a relationship with a primary care physician, you receive better high-quality care, receive higher quality care, you receive more low-quality care, your costs are lower, and you have a better patient experience. So the most important thing that I believe that we can do is to find that person. And sometimes it's not just the first person you see. I realize today, patients are healthcare consumers. So there's oftentimes patients will come to me and say, I've already looked you up. I'm not really here for medical care. I want to interview you. I want to see what you're all about. Understanding that and being ready to meet that challenge head on, honestly, and being committed to developing a long-term, longitudinal relationship built on trust.
Thank you so much. I mean, for me, I had a bad medical experience, and it took me 13 years to go back and see a primary care physician. And so developing that trusting relationship is truly key, one where you know they respect you, that they care about your health and your health journey, and that they are partners with you in getting across the line. So thank you so much for that. We talk about health disparities in our community and how it is really impacting our community. Can you talk about some of the critical gaps that you're seeing in healthcare disparities in the communities we serve?
So clearly, the number one killer of all people is cardiovascular disease. And we continue to see disparities as it relates to cardiovascular disease, particularly with women. We see that there still is an opportunity for us to improve the diagnostic tools that are utilized to diagnose heart disease in women early on. We talk about maternal health. You all know that the United States is actually ranked like a third world country when it looks at maternal mortality, and you know that African American women have 3 times the amount of death related to maternal issues as compared to Caucasian women. I find that totally unacceptable, and it is unacceptable because of the lives lost, but it's unacceptable also because of how long we have been having this conversation. What we now know, though, is that, yes, the major diseases that impact pregnancy, high blood pressure with pregnancy, diabetes with pregnancy, all of those lead to untoward events. But we also know that there is competency with the providers, and competency with the providers for listening to the women, and understanding that women actually do know their bodies better than anyone else, since they've lived with that body longer than anyone else. And so when a woman comes and she is sharing, whether it is in the vaguest terms, that there is a challenge, providers need to become culturally humble and listen to that woman and work until there's a solution identified to address the issues that the woman is presenting with. And when you look at the time frame in which we see the highest rate of maternal mortality, it is within those first 6 weeks after pregnancy. So it is really, really critical. And this is something that you as mayors, I know, are tuned to, that you continue to have postpartum care up for the entire first year after someone has a pregnancy. Because when you really look at the data and you start to see women with early stage heart disease or diabetes in their 40s and 50s, you can generally connect that back to a time when they were pregnant. And if you connect those dots, you will see that there were interventions that could have ensued in that first year after pregnancy that may have prevented that heart disease at age 50 or that heart attack that the woman had at age 50. So listening to women and ensuring that you have resources in your communities for access to care before pregnancy, during pregnancy, and after pregnancy is really, really critical. So maternal mortality and the differences in cardiovascular disease are at top of mind, but also I think about cancer. We know that there continues to be cancer inequities and that there are many things that we can do in the diagnostic realm to have earlier diagnosis of breast cancer and prostate cancer and colon cancers that disproportionately impact people of color.
Thank you so much, and I'm going to come right back to you, Dr. Watkins. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that AMA has a Black Maternal Health Toolkit that is available on our website. We want to thank our Business Council members, and Village MD being one of that has helped to sponsor that, because as Dr. Montgomery Rice said, we need to look at preconception health, because how we are before conception, our health is very important. Looking at that first, second, and third trimester, but then the year after we deliver. Those things are important. When a Black woman with a master's degree in the state of New York is more likely to either lose a child or die in or after childbirth than a white woman from West Virginia without a GED, there is something wrong with the system in our country, and we have to talk about it more. We cannot continue to just say, oh, well, you know, it's the sugar or it's the pressure. It's also the fact that our voices are not heard and we're not respected when we talk about our bodies. So thank you so much for that. Dr. Watkins, if you could.
To kind of expand a little bit on what Dr. Montgomery Rice was saying, access is key. The lack of access is huge. We can look at in, my city of Atlanta, at the southwest side of the city. It is right now a hospital desert. So access is key, but also the practice of primary care, effective primary care, is changing. Primary care now is a team-based sport. Traditionally, when we were growing up, for me, growing up in a small town in North Florida, I saw Dr. P.D. Weeks. It was just he, a nurse, and that was it. Whereas now, in order to move, we talk about population health. We need to understand what the health status is of our communities. We need to put together healthcare teams that may include not just the doctor and your medical assistant, but it may include a clinical pharmacist. It may include social workers, nutritionists. When I first joined, and you saw me on the video, when I first joined Village, what drew me in and caught me was a little bit of my backstory. My first half of my career, I practiced for about 13, 14 years at Grady Memorial Hospital. I was medical director at the primary care center there. It was great, not only because I was serving my community, but also the social worker was down the hall and she was a friend. The nutritionist was across the hall. I had teams of staff that could help me. When I started my practice, it was me and I had to figure it out. When I joined Village, we had a home care service. If a patient needed to be seen at home, I could have a nurse practitioner go to their home and see them. There was a care management team that would interact with them. Care transitions liaisons that would meet them in the hospital and help coordinate their care coming out of the hospital. Really true team-based care. And if I was to give another message to all of the leaders here, expand your definition of what the team is. Understand that as leaders, you are part of that healthcare team. If you see that there's a need in your community, talk to your community, find out what their needs are, and approach it just like you're bringing businesses into that community. You're going to bring healthcare into that community as well, and the basis has to be primary care. If you want to get ahead of diseases, if you want to prevent chronic diseases, investing in primary care is leading from the front.
I'll add to that, one of the things that I am very proud of is that Morehouse School of Medicine has a community health worker training program. And we are in the process right now of training, I think, 250 community health workers for Clayton County through a grant that they received. And there are opportunities through HRSA to further advance the opportunity for community health workers. It serves as a foundation for care coordination, but it also inspires that individual to get on that health care continuum and advancing themselves through becoming maybe next a medical assistant, then maybe becoming a nurse, or maybe going to medical school or going to PA school. We started a community health worker training program for high school students, and we've had significant success with those students going on to college, going on to two-year schools, but staying in the healthcare field, so you can use it as a pipeline opportunity, and there are HRSA dollars that can be used for funding through the counties, et cetera, to support those type of training programs.
Thank you so much. I mean, community health workers are critically important. They are able to reach out into the community in the way that the physicians often are not. We created care communities all throughout the nation in the midst of COVID. We created a comprehensive care ecosystem, and now that COVID I wouldn't say has gone away, we have to be sure that we're not dismantling those community care systems that we created in our community. Are we working with our churches? Are we working with our businesses? Because the business community really wants to make sure that health is delivered, and I say that because presenteeism, this is for our business council members, presenteeism costs businesses more money than absenteeism. People will use their vacation days or their sick days to go and do fun things, but they will come to work sick. And so when people are coming to work sick, you are not having a productive employee. And so you have to partner and become part of that care community and do these chew and chats, the lunch and learns, the conversations about health and health equity. That is part of the care community. A healthy employee is a much more productive employee, and it is going to give you greater returns on your investment. And so as we wrap up, just one last thing. What can we do as leaders, as mayors, as business leaders in our community to advance health equity?
You know, I think that one of the most important things that you can do is to listen to your community. I know that many of you are out in your community. What are you hearing? Are there major levels of concern, areas of concern, and then how do you work with them to co-create solutions that really are grassroots efforts? One of the things that we had at Morehouse School of Medicine for 10 years, we had a Black Mayor's training opportunity that was a year-long program to support Black mayors in understanding public policy and public health and how to create an ecosystem of change in the health space for their community. It has gone on a hiatus when we had COVID, but now the team is working on bringing that back to life, and we will definitely keep this organization informed because you are the persons who we created that for, and it was very well received, and a lot of it was done over Zoom, but then there was really the opportunity to come together 4 times a year, and you actually had a project, a keystone project that you had to bring from your community that you wanted to create, and we help create with you the tools to make that sustainable in the community. So we are definitely going to bring that back through our Satchel Health Leadership Institute, so stay tuned.
Thank you so much, Dr. Montgomery Rice. Thank you so much, Dr. Watkins. Please know that as leaders, it is our responsibility, it is our duty, but it is also our pleasure to serve as partners in promoting health justice in our community. Thank you for this conversation. We look forward to that mayor's cohort where we can learn more so that we can be better partners in promoting health justice in our community. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you, Village MD, for being a great partner.
At this point in time, the need for a barbershop to cut officer evaluation by 50%, focusing not only on technology and transformation, but truly understanding the needs of the residents that our police officers police, but also to understand still about the community and trust.
A couple of the highlights that I have was the engagement of how the body cams, how the technology is really used in real life, day-to-day scenarios that a lot of mayors don't get to see.
We want to tell you all about Axon's tools, but in the spirit of what those tools can do for communities. And public safety really starts with all of you. And help us make decisions that will benefit the community with our own products. And make sure that the guardrails are there to protect the communities that we love.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Policy Session 5, sponsored by Axon.
It's a pleasure to be here with all of you this afternoon. The name of this panel is Frontline Innovators, Mayoral Strategies for Safer Cities. I'm Regina Holloway, and I'm the VP of Community Impact at Axon. Axon stands at the intersection of technology and public safety. And what the Community Impact Team does is we further ethical and equitable outcomes in the development of technologies which are disproportionately used in our communities. We use the term public safety often without thinking about the weight of that phrase. Like, what does that mean? It encompasses so much. It encompasses the trauma that communities are plagued with. This is something that has drawn me to this work. I have experienced that sort of loss in my own life with my brother, who I lost to gun violence. I understand this trauma well, and we know that these issues are broad, and they are intrinsically related to so many other issues, including the economic underdevelopment of our communities, housing discrimination, housing policy, housing laws, redlining, education, law enforcement, and the problems and the challenges that we have with policing in our communities, public health, and we know violence is a part of this it's a public health problem. And of course, what underpins all of this would be systemic racism. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with two visionary mayors, and we need folks to be visionary to handle these really deep and complicated problems. And they are shaping public safety initiatives across the country and working to make their city safer for our communities. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Mayor Adams of New York and Mayor Bibb of Cleveland. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I'll start with Mayor Adams. I joke with him behind the scenes that I'm from Philadelphia. Shout out to my mayor, Ms. Parker.
Go
Mayor
Knicks.
Parker.
Go
Yeah.
Knicks.
Wait. Go Cavs.
But
Go
he's sitting
Cavs.
here next to me, so Mayor Adams, when you think about this, a city the size of New York, a police force the size of NYPD, how are you thinking about using technology to effectuate public safety? Because we know.
In New York City, we have 8.3 million people with 35 million opinions. Everyone has an opinion in New York, and there's something that all of us, and I'm sure, Mayor, you also have to look at, we have to figure out, as hard as it is for people to realize, how do you do public safety with the decrease of human interaction as possible? We're at a critical level in the Department of Correction. We're at a critical level in the decrease in the Department of Probation. It's difficult recruiting law enforcement officers. Our school safety agents is at a difficult level. Park patrols at a difficult level, critical level. So we have to be comfortable and invite innovation and technology on how you compensate for the fact that the levels of law enforcement is decreasing at such a rate, and recruitment is a real issue. Many people are not looking at these promising careers, and we have really embraced technology 100%. There's a lot of concern, particularly from people of color, because technology has also often been used to be harmful and not helpful, but we have to lean into that discomfort, be part of the designers, be part of the building out the pipeline of employment, because these are hundreds of thousands of jobs, billions of dollars are going to be spent on this, and we can't just be on the sideline as detached spectators and expect people to not engage in technology. Technology is here and it's going nowhere, and we have to be involved in how it's going to be designed.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Let's get Mayor Bibb in the conversation, because I know that he has a lot to say about this. I know that you recently introduced a comprehensive plan called the Raising Investment and Safety for Everyone Initiative, or the RISE Initiative. I would love to hear more about that.
Well, last summer in July, we experienced a mass shooting in our entertainment district. And at that time, in July of last year, we were on pace to have nearly 200 homicides. And I recognized that as a city, we were at an inflection point and needed a more comprehensive, all-of-government approach to really tackle violent crime. So we did a couple things. Number one, we held a police union summit with our brass from the FOP and the CPPA to negotiate the largest modern pay increase our city has ever seen for the men and women of our police department, a 25% pay increase, 25%. And when I took office, we were in the bottom third statewide in Ohio. Now we're in the top third. The other thing we did was we really deployed technology in a more effective way. And so as I was doing public safety walks, east side, west side, downtown in Cleveland, so many small business owners, so many residents said, look, I have a Ring camera. How do I plug that Ring camera into your real-time crime center? So we did it. And because we've expanded our Ring camera sharing program with small business owners and residents, it has allowed us to have a nearly 80% homicide solve rate by the end of last year, because we're using good community intelligence as well, too. And I think it's important to recognize when Democrats and Republicans can come together to address violent crime. I'm a Democratic mayor in a red state in Ohio. I still think it's a purple state, by the way. But after that mass shooting, I called Governor DeWine, and he allowed me to use the Ohio Highway Patrol to beef up traffic enforcement, as well as cut down on the flow of illegal guns in our city. All those things have played a role. Now, year to date, homicides are down in Cleveland nearly 30%, and carjackings are down 30% as well, too. So trend line is going in the right direction, but we got a lot more work to do.
And it's so important what Mayor Bibbs is saying, because if you look at his city, Chicago, Los Angeles, Houston, New York, when you look at the disproportionate amount of violence that it takes place in our communities of color. And Democrats have not historically been willing to lean into how important having good quality police in their community. And we're big on recruiting from our community. We can't just complain about ineffective policing. We have to pay the right salary, hold them responsible, but also diversify the department. And that's what we're doing in the city of New York. That's
How are you
crucial to do.
attracting folks? Because I think this is so important what you said. I mean, the police are the community and the community are the police, right? And so how are you bringing folks in and attracting them to serve in the communities that they grew up in?
By being on the ground and telling them, be, as Obama once said, be the change that you want. You will have police in your community. So you're going to determine what that police is going to be. You know, as a child, I was arrested and assaulted by police officers. Reverend Herbert Daughtry talked me into going into the police department and starting 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement and becoming that change that I wanted to be. You can't just sit back and say how abusive police officers are, yet you're not willing to tell, I want my AKAs, my Divine Nine, my frat brothers and sisters, my Eastern Star, my Masons, my sororities. We should be going to those quality people of color that we know and groom them to be the police that we want them to be. All of our pastors, they know who's suitable to be good law enforcement officers. And that's what, when you're the mayors of these cities, you want your police department to reflect the diversity of the city that you're policing in.
Absolutely.
My dad was a cop, and I remember.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, my dad was a cop, and I remember him patrolling in the central neighborhood of Cleveland, and all the dope boys and the guys from the gang knew my pops, and there was a code that everybody followed on Sunday, and you know my dad knew that code. The folks he was patrolling knew that code. The neighborhood knew the code because my dad was from that neighborhood, and he knew the folks on the streets. And I think we as mayors, we have to be, especially as black mayors, we have to be the voice and the symbol of how to recruit more black and brown folks to our ranks in our respective police departments. And we have to show them and tell them that being a cop is an honorable profession. It paved the way for my family to have a fighting shot at the middle class. It allowed my dad to help me get through college. And it gave him a pension that gave him the ability to have a solid retirement. These are amazing benefits. And far too long and far too often, we let the media portray the narrative of policing. We are the best spokespeople of why joining law enforcement is a great and honorable profession.
Well, we often talk about over-policing. Let's give it up to them, both of them. Both of our mayors. I think we don't talk enough about under-policing neighborhoods. Like folks who live in neighborhoods, we want to be safe too. You know?
Well said.
So can you talk about that a little bit?
And that's the joy of technology and what we're doing. The mayor and I were talking backstage. We are introducing drones. We have been policing our cities and public safety from the ground level. We have now incorporated drones into our response. My leadership team, we can sit at City Hall or on the road and look live. Like I have demonstrations taking place right now in the city on our college campuses. I am looking at how my police are responding right on my phone. I'm watching how they deploy. You're able to make those real-time decisions. We're also using technology to identify guns. There's a technology out there now that we are exploring where will tell you exactly where a gun is located on someone. We're going to start rolling it out in our transit system, and we're looking to expand it even more. And the relationship that we have developed is that we have our private companies using as testing labs for us. We started a security council with all of our private companies, and they are testing out the technology on their plants. Once they passes their level of testing, we're now going to do pilot projects inside our system. We're big on facial recognition. Everybody gets squeezy when they hear it, but if it's used correctly and effectively, you could really protect the parameters of your locations. We are really leaning into that as well. And Axion, what they're doing now with police can dock, what they're looking to roll out, that police will be able to dock their cameras and actually write the reports. So there's so much new technology out there, and we cannot be afraid of it. Government has historically been afraid to embrace technology or slow to embrace technology. Not under this administration. We're technology on steroids. We want to get it done.
I love that. That's very important. And, you know, it brings me to another thought that Mayor Bibb mentioned earlier, which is, you just mentioned Draft One, which is our police writing technology. That technology, the one thing that we did in the background of that you may not know, is that we put that technology in, we collaborated with community members on our ethics and equity advisory coalition, and we're thinking deeply about how do you unveil this technology for communities. So how do you think, Mayor Bibb, and then I would love to hear from you, Mayor Adams, how do you close that gap? Because there is a gap, like this technology gap.
We have these massive gaps in technology and massive gaps in trust, a lack of trust between police and residents, a lack of trust between residents and the technology tools that they're currently using. And this is important for me because Cleveland is currently under a federal consent decree. We are nearing the 10th anniversary of our consent decree and also the 10th anniversary of the tragic murder of Tamir Rice. And so I feel a special moral obligation to take trust between police and our residents very seriously. And so as we've deployed technologies like ShotSpotter, and by the way, for folks who try to criticize a technology like ShotSpotter, I would tell you this. In many parts of the cities that Mayor Adams and I govern, folks aren't calling 911. They ain't calling 911. So if gunshots are going off, and someone's not calling 911, and we don't have a technology like ShotSpotter, that doesn't allow us to collect that shell casing data, put it in NIBIN, and track where that gun's coming from, right? You don't have a high homicide solve rate without that technology. But the missing piece has been, how do we communicate the benefits of this technology in a way that our residents can understand? Bring them along, make them a part of the design and deployment process. That needs to be a part of our engagement. So we created a technology advisory committee as part of our community police commission to advise this city on how to design and deploy this kind of technology across our city.
And then you need folks like yourself. The duality of your life experience should be part of the rollout and development of the technology. Here, on one sense, you talk about the unfortunate loss of a loved one to gun violence, so that's a real commitment to public safety. And then you have the civil rights background to make sure that people are not overusing the technology. We should be encouraging our young people to get involved in this form of employment and profession, because you could get the balance. I hear all the time, I have yet to go to one community meeting where people are not saying we want our police officers. We just want our police officers to be respectful. Yes. And we need that type of combination, like folks like yourself and others, for Mayor Bibbs to say, hey, listen, my dad was a police officer, I know what public safety is about, and then have a civil rights background. You can find that sweet spot in that balance. And when you look at what we're looking at in our 311 and 911 system, we are building in and examining new technology that when someone calls and they speak a different language, it would automatically translate that language.
That's phenomenal.
When people can know, because you lose seconds. In public safety, seconds matter. And in our city, like when I was the Brooklyn Borough President, one of our boroughs, 47% of the people spoke a language other than English at home. We're an extremely diverse city. And to have a 911 system that when you call, it would automatically translate, and the dispatcher is hearing in the language they understand, and when they speak back to the person, it is translated into their language. That moves us volumes ahead to be able to provide that public protection that's needed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mayor Bibb, what are you excited about? What technologies, you know, Mayor Adams named a lot of technology. He's the technology mayor. What technologies are you excited about, and what are concerns you or keeps you up at night, and what would you like more thought, more community input around?
Yeah, I'd say I'm excited about all the technology that we talked about. What keeps me up at night is this continued perception that black Democratic mayors don't know how to run their cities and keep them safe. And this is a narrative that's racist and fueled by the extreme right wing of the Republican Party. Let me give you a prime example. In my first month in office, I met with the Republican member of the Ohio legislature, and he told me this. He said, Mayor Bibb, if you ran your city like I run my township, you'd be a lot better off. That was coded language. So we can't, as black mayors, we can't rely on the DNC. We can't rely on anybody else to tell our story of how we're keeping our city safe and secure. Right now, a majority of big cities across this country have seen historic declines in homicides, all led by who? Black mayors. We got to tell that story. We got to tell that story.
Well said. And we cannot be ashamed of stating we want proper policing.
Yes.
We allowed people to embarrass us because we say we want proper policing and we want our cities to be safe. We have to be front to center. We need to demand respect, accountability, but we cannot be ashamed to say that our communities, which has a disproportionate amount of crime, should not have that safety. And then it's a holistic approach. It's intervention and prevention. It's invested in our foster care children. It's invested in those young brothers and sisters coming home from incarceration. 30 to 40% of them across the country are dyslexic. That's why we have dyslexia screening to prevent that. It's really being proactive. Summer youth employment, having safe space for our children. We need to really be front and center to say we deserve to be safe. Our families deserve to be safe. I'm still in Bedford-Stuyvesant, the community that I've known so well, and that is what we must represent. This is an exciting time. These mayors and those who are here, these are tough times, but when you do an analysis of these cities and how we have turned around these cities, New York has more we have more jobs in the history of our city. We have a AA bond rating. We cycle out of COVID, cycle out of 191,000 migrants and asylum seekers. No one is sleeping on the streets of our city because of that. Decrease in homicide, decrease in shootings, 62 million tourists. What we have done is we have broken the mold that our abilities to govern these complex cities in real time. Now, we're not going to get the credit. You know, people are going to act like it didn't happen. But when you do an analysis, these mayors are governing these cities like they have never been governed before. And you see the results of that. And the significant part of it, what we are doing, we're governing the cities with folks of color.
Yeah, that's right.
My 5 deputy mayors of color, my director of intergovernmental affairs, Tiffany, who's here, we are showing folks that all we asked was, Coach, put us in the game, and we're in the game, and we're showing how to play the game.
Yes, yes, I love that. A seat at the table, we deserve that. Mayor Bibb, tell me what you're hopeful about, and then I'd love to hear from Mayor Adams' last thoughts about what you're hopeful about. I'm hopeful about collaborating with all of you to solve these really, really tough problems. What are you hopeful about?
Well, this room gives me hope. You know, I look at all of my colleagues across the country who are going through the same things that I'm going through as mayor. And as a mayor who preceded the first black mayor of a major American city, the late, great Carl B. Stokes, I feel as if I have a special moral obligation to keep his promise alive. And I think all of us in this room are keeping Carl B. Stokes' promise alive. And I think collectively we can show the nation that black mayors are a symbol of the greatness of what the American dream can be all about.
Absolutely, absolutely. Do you have last words, Mayor Adams?
Extremely optimistic. I have the saying all the time, stay focused, no distractions, and grind. That's all we do. It's unbelievable how everyone wants to distract you. Everyone wants to pull you off your game. Everyone, you know, just want to just take you off your game. And when I got in office, I followed this, the 30-year gap before the first black man, Mayor Dinkins. I'm the second black mayor in the city of New York. And I read all of their books. I spoke with Mayor Emanuel from Chicago. I just spoke to everyone, and everyone was consistent on that. As a mayor, everyone is going to tell you how to do the job. And I tell folks all the time, if you know how to do the job so well, you need to have run for the job. But you have to, you just have to be true to yourself. And the optimism, all that I have gone through in the last 2 years and 4 months, I still wake up with the excitement that God has placed me here for a reason and the purpose that I have. And I just don't feel any stress. I don't feel the weight of this. I know I got this, and no matter how hard it is, I'm not picking cotton from sun up to sundown and watching myself being beat in a rag.
Preach, Mayor Adams.
We got this.
Yes, we save us.
Pass the offering plate. We done now.
But with that, before Phyllis comes up, thank you. I would like to thank my panel. Thank you, Mayor Adams. Thank you, Mayor Bibb, for this great conversation. Thank all of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, Secretary of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security.
Well, in case you needed any evidence, the individual who spoke right before me was clearly a lot taller than I. Last March, a large and destructive tornado touched down in Rolling Fork, Mississippi, a town of just less than 2,000 people, a few miles from the Louisiana border. 17 people were killed. More than 150 were injured, and whole blocks of the town were simply blown away. 300 homes were destroyed, and more than 500 people were displaced. 3 days after that terrible tragedy, I traveled to Rolling Fork to meet with survivors and to ensure Mayor Eldridge Walker had the support he needed from the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA as he and his team led the town's recovery and response work. In the days following that trip, DHS and our administration partners helped ensure that the cost of debris removal and overtime for local first responders were covered by the federal government. We opened 4 disaster recovery centers, and we deployed hundreds of disaster survivor assistant teams to cut through red tape and expeditiously get over $11 million in cash grants into the hands of survivors, helping them cover the cost of temporary housing, home repair, and the replacement of lost personal property. In the 21 years since our department's founding, we've responded to hundreds of natural disasters like that tornado in cities and towns of every size in every corner of our country. To do so is one of our founding charges. Indeed, when President Bush first addressed the nation to propose the creation of Homeland Security, he noted that among the new department's most prominent duties would be to, quote, work with state and local authorities to respond quickly and effectively to emergencies. Countless communities, including some of yours, know firsthand the breadth of resources and support our department can bring during a moment of great need. The same is true of our work as it relates to another of our department's founding charges, tasked in the aftermath of 9/11, preventing acts of terrorism and targeted violence. Though the U.S. continues to be in a heightened threat environment, and our team remains devoted to countering the threat of foreign terrorism, today we confront lone offenders, individuals and small groups already present in the United States and radicalized to violence based on ideologies of hate, personal grievances, anti-government sentiments, and false narratives. We now live in a world where anyone in any town, anywhere, can be a target. Our support and our prevention resources, therefore, are available to and utilized by communities of every size everywhere. Following the horrific racist murder of 10 Black Americans at a Tops supermarket in Buffalo 2 years ago, our department worked with the state of New York State to help prevent another such act of targeted violence. We engaged with officials across the state, including some of you here today, to help individual communities access grant funding, develop and implement a targeted violence prevention strategy, and bring together intergovernmental teams of public health practitioners, social service providers, educators, and law enforcement professionals to better identify opportunities for intervention before tragedy could strike. This collaboration has yielded real results. Hundreds of referrals have been made to behavioral threat assessment and management teams in counties across the state, at least 2 of which led to the discovery of drafted manifestos and stockpiled weapons. I share these stories to make clear the power of and critical need for partnership between DHS and the nation's cities in service of our common mission of ensuring the safety and security of our country. The importance of such partnership will only grow in the months and years ahead. The threats now facing our country constitute far more than just the natural disasters and targeted violence we regularly work with all of you to mitigate. Fentanyl and other deadly drugs, cyber threats to critical infrastructure, the increasing aggressiveness of adverse nation states, climate change, the scourges of human trafficking and online child sexual exploitation, unprecedented global and hemispheric migration, and much more. Today, all can pose a significant challenge to any locality. We know that no government can effectively confront these diverse and evolving challenges alone. Yet we know, too, that when any of these challenges do arise, it is often the mayor who is turned to for answers, and when tragedy strikes, it is the mayor who is expected to pick up the pieces of a devastated, broken community. That is why I wanted to be here in Atlanta this afternoon, to make clear to you and to your communities that the Department of Homeland Security, your Department of Homeland Security, is committed to assisting you before, during, and after any modern threat to our safety and security presents itself. One need not look beyond the last few weeks to see proof of this. When the Francis Scott Key Bridge tragically collapsed in Baltimore last month, our U.S. Coast Guard response assets, including rescue boats and helicopter crews, were on the scene within minutes of the collapse, leading search and rescue operations in those critical early hours along city, county, and state partners. Our marine investigators and pollution response experts moved quickly to contain potential environmental damage and gather evidence from the accident scene in the days following the collapse. Coast Guard crews joined the Unified Command and remain on the scene today, 1 month later, working closely with our administration counterparts, Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott and Maryland Governor Wes Moore, to restart the flow of commerce through the Port of Baltimore, stabilize the city's economy, and safeguard our critical supply chains. As online threats grow in complexity and diversity by the day, DHS just last week, launched Know to Protect, our newest public awareness and education campaign to bring communities together to stop one of the most heinous and most urgent emerging digital dangers facing our communities: online child sexual exploitation and abuse. Last year, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received more than 36 million cyber tips, and the volume of incoming reports has increased more than 20% over the past 3 years. In too many places, the web is growing darker and darker, and its real-world effects can be starkly seen in numerous reports of young people who took their own lives after falling victim to sextortion attempts. Know to Protect helps communities prevent these tragedies and safeguard against these threats by providing free resources, trainings, and tools that children's, adults, schools, and community leaders can all use to learn how to recognize and report attempted exploitation and abuse, and how to get help when it is needed. Education and awareness can make a difference. This past October, Homeland Security Investigations Special Agents conducted such a training at a school in Tennessee. Following the presentation, a young girl in attendance came up to the special agents, accompanied by her parents, and told them that an adult male had contacted her on social media, sent her sexually explicit imagery of himself, and persuaded her to produce and send her own. The child received victim assistance, and federal prosecution of the perpetrator is underway. That is the kind of life-saving outcome that our close, continued partnership has the power to deliver for communities across our country. It is what the American people expect and deserve from us, and it is why I am so grateful for the opportunity to be here and connect with all of you today. I use that word connect intentionally. Effective partnership cannot be a one-way street. Our collective security is far better served when you, the nation's mayors, those who know best what challenges your community is facing and what is needed to mitigate those challenges, share your unique insight and experiences with those of us in Washington. Early in my tenure as secretary, I reviewed years of research showing that FEMA had historically, if unintentionally, rejected disaster aid applications at a higher rate for minority and poor populations, particularly in the South. Local leaders helped us see where the disconnect lay. In communities where homes were commonly passed down from generation to generation, decades or even centuries old, deeds were often misplaced, damaged, or even non-existent, making it much more difficult for disaster survivors to produce the documentation we made necessary to qualify for FEMA home repair funds. That local insight helped lead our department in 2021 to significantly expand the range of document options to prove home ownership, utility bills, or even an affidavit, an early step in our ongoing work to ensure our services, resources, and support are accessible to all and no one is unjustly left behind. Together, we help more homeowners get the support they were entitled to. Convenings like this and the connections made here are essential to building a better future. For 10 years, under the leadership of Mayor Patterson Howard and many others, the African American Mayors Association has been essential to facilitating the partnerships and support our nation's leaders depend on. Thank you very much to all of you for being here, for your leadership and stewardship, and for the opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you.
We want to thank Secretary Mayorkas for being here, for his presence, for his work, and for his leadership. I want to thank him for his strength in the face of obstruction from those, some of those in the United States Congress. We're grateful for the United States Senate taking the position that it took as it relates to his appointment and his work as Secretary. That said, we also want to take the time to thank Elemental Accelerate for providing us with an updated toolkit for local climate action. Please visit our website at ourmayors.org to preview it. We've come to the end of our lunch session, so thank you so much. But before you go, just a couple of quick housekeeping notes. The Innovation Center, we want to encourage you to go to the Innovation Center immediately following this session. Our sponsors have invested in it, and they want to see the mayors, they want to see the mayors, and they want to see the mayors. And our members have said that this is what we want to see. It gives you a chance to ask questions. It gives you a chance to interact. We know that there's a little bit of a one-way street here when we have a panel, but this gives you the opportunity to engage on a number of topics. So very briefly, at 3 o'clock to 3:30, we have the White House Initiative for Educational Equity, Excellence, and Economic Opportunity for Black Americans, Advancing Educational Equity, Excellence, and Economic Opportunity. Ratcliffe Premium Meats, feeding your community one bite at a time. Cities United, Coalition to Advance Public Safety, second cohort launch with Atlanta, Los Angeles, Milwaukee, and Oakland. And I know we're in Atlanta, so don't say anything. I didn't do this. I didn't write this, Mayor Dickens. But PepsiCo, yes, PepsiCo, in Atlanta, building a sustainable future, recycling roles, and environmental stewardship. That's from 3 o'clock to 3:30. If you don't know about the Pepsi analogy here in Atlanta, you're not from the South. But if you are, you visiting, we'll tell you about it just a little bit. But that is a big thing with Coca-Cola being founded and headquartered here. So a little bit of fun, but we're grateful for PepsiCo and their participation. At 3:45 to 4:15 in the Innovation Center, Dell and NVIDIA will also host a U.S. Mayoral Roundtable. Georgia Stand Up, Partnerships for Progress, How Municipalities Can Secure Justice 40 Funding. And if you're like me, you're always looking for a way to bring in more revenue to your city, so we may want to check out that Georgia Stand Up, Partnerships for Progress, How Municipalities Can Secure Justice 40 Funding. Also, Food Corps, Nourishing Just Futures for Kids, and WWAV, Mayoral Influence, Driving Civic Education for Informed Communities. And that's from 3:45 to 4:15. Now, from 4:30 to 5 p.m., Wells Fargo, Uniting Generational Wealth by Resolving Heirs Property Issues, Unlocking Generational Wealth by resolving heirs' property issues. As a former probate judge dealing with wills and estates, very, very important matter when it comes to passing on generational wealth, to understand the will and estate process. So I thank Wells Fargo for that. Finally, we have the Michaels Organization. How can you create attainable housing in your city? The Atlanta Civic Center Redevelopment, a case study in partnerships. So these are just the topics of the Innovation Center that we want everyone to take part in. And again, this gives us a chance to have a two-way conversation with many of our partners with the African American Mayors Association. Mayors, also, just the last bit of housekeeping, we want you to go to the registration desk for your gift from Damon Johns. We want you to make sure you only get one gift that they have for you. It's only one mayor, as you say, probably to your city council, if you're like me. So that means one gift. So they have it right out there at the registration table. So please pick up your gift, and we're grateful for that. And finally, the staff has asked that we immediately vacate this room so they can turn it over for tonight's affair. We know that you all may get dressed real quickly and dress up for tonight's gala, but they need a little bit more time to turn this room over for this evening. So again, we are now complete with our session. Please, if you will, carry on your conversations right outside, and we look forward to seeing you at the Innovation Center. Thank you so much, and keep up the great work.